Chapter 6, Auto-Scaling Your Service Fabric Cluster. Learning outcomes of this chapter are overview of auto-scaling, exploring what auto-scaling is, and then setting up auto-scaling. Exploring auto-scaling. Before we start exploring auto-scaling, we just go through the scaling options we have in Service Fabric. As you all know, scaling is a key part of your performance and uptime, managing the uptime of your service as a whole. So, as you also know, there are two major types of Service Fabric services, stateless and stateful. There's different ways how we can scale these two services. If you go back in days, you used to scale vertically. If you need more capacity for your server, you added more RAM by turning it off, add more RAM CPU, turn it back on. Thanks to microservices and Service Fabric cluster, you can add a new node into the form rather than adding more resources to the same node. This allows you to keep your services up and running and also scaling at the same time. So that's how we do it for stateless services, whereas stateful service needs to maintain the state of the replica. So every stateful service will have a partition and it needs to replicate with other nodes for high availability. So what we do, we add more partitions into the form. Service Fabric can easily replicate hundreds of partitions. It is built for high scale applications. Auto-scaling. Auto-scaling is adding additional capacity to Service Fabric cluster, adding more instances or more partitions on demand. And it supports both containers and regular Service Fabric services. Before we start into auto scaling, you need to make sure your application requirements. You need to work out exactly how many types of nodes you need. Remember when we were creating Service Fabric cluster on the portal, there was an option to select types of nodes. You can have 1, 2, 3 or more. So that decision is important because not all your services will have same resource requirements. Some applications might be more CPU intensive, some applications might be more memory intensive. You need to make that decision. B is you need to know your durability requirements. Remember those gold, bronze, silver durability tiers? You need to work that out before you start looking into scaling. And similarly goes with reliability characteristics. So think about these three things before you start making a benchmark requirement for your cluster. Have a quick think about it and then build a cluster, do some performance monitoring and some performance testing, run the expected load, leave some buffer, and then make some decisions. This is how you do it normally.